right, welcome to another episode of the Bulldog Bark. I'm yours truly, the Guru. With me, as always, got my partner in crime, BFC, Butler's Fighting Crew. And today we got another special guest in the building, former Butler Bulldog, and honestly, in my eyes, just a legend. Andrew Chrabascz. How you doing, man?
Appreciate you having me. Doing really well, though.
Good, man. Good. So yeah, we're gonna sit down with Andrew today and just kind of see what he's been up to since Bulldog days, and reminisce on the good old days because he definitely was there during some good times. So before we get into anything else, man, just kind of talk to us. What we know you went to Army for a little bit to help coach there. Just talk to us about what you've been up to since your Butler Bulldog days.
Yeah, so right after graduating, went overseas for 3 years before COVID. Played in a few countries. Obviously, that was an unbelievable opportunity. And then after that, with COVID, everything like that, obviously that rocked everyone's world. But worked in the mortgage industry for like a year and a half, and that just I'm not going to knock anyone that's in it, but for me, it wasn't fast paced enough, anything like that. So when Archie Miller actually got hired at URI, I knew that would be a great opportunity being a Rhode Islander. Got on the staff with him just as a GA and got my foot in the door. And then small world situation where Coach Kuick, obviously being at Butler the year before, and then he also working for Coach Miller back in the day at Dayton, kind of worlds collided and was given the opportunity to coach over at West Point this past year. So obviously was happy to be there, and unbelievably high character kids, but now out of it in another sales role with a company called BSN Sports. So really excited to be doing this right now as well.
That's awesome, man. And you mentioned overseas. Talk a little bit about that. What locations were you at? What teams you play for, and kind of what was the experience like? So we talked to Paul Jorgensen on a podcast earlier. We've also talked to Tyler Lewis, but Paul Jorgensen was kind of talking about the differences in like the European, like how it's just different over there. So kind of talk to us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so first year I was in Belgium, actually with Kellen Dunham. He was one of my teammates, small world situation too. That team had a bunch of veterans. It was probably one of my favorite teams I've ever played with, just because like it was such a family oriented thing. Obviously, you're over in Europe for 10 months. So having that close knit group of guys obviously makes a big difference. But Paul's obviously played in different countries, but like in the Belgian, German countries, everything like that, it is incredibly physical, which I loved. I mean, I was not shying away from it at all. But yeah, you adapt quickly. It's obviously incredibly skilled. People just know how to play over there, and people that have high IQ normally translate to having a long career over there. And yeah, like I said, so first year Belgium, unreal. Second year in another club in Belgium, but just was able to travel throughout Europe within another league as well. And then that last year I was in Poland, where the year got cut off a little early just because of the travel ban and COVID, everything like that. So big picture, would have probably enjoyed a few more years, but that year of sitting down in the house has obviously changed a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So speaking of like getting down, sitting in the house stuff, what kind of was ultimately your decision when you said, I got to hang up the shoes, and then obviously you got into coaching, and now you're getting out of that. Kind of talk to us. I guess when was it time you're like, you know what, I think I'm ready to go try something different.
Yeah, I mean that year with COVID, for overseas players, because of how like there wasn't a clause for it. Obviously, no one thought a pandemic was going to happen. So a lot of clubs that following year had a bunch of clauses in their contracts that was basically, if anything ever happens where someone gets it and we have to cancel games, like pay is just going to be completely different. So my agent and I, we both decided, like, you know what, let's be smart about this and figure out maybe halfway through the year we'll try another club. But then at the same time, after 8 months of kind of not having basketball as the job, you kind of like, it wasn't that I fell out of love with working out, but it just, you realize, okay, what's the next thing potentially going to be? So as I said, big picture, looking back on it, probably would have been happy to do a few more years. I mean, you get paid to play basketball and you see the world, but don't regret it at all. And then the follow-up question with the coaching side of it all, I loved it. I mean, once again, I was spoiled with great coaches at URI. I think Coach Miller is incredibly smart. I mean, I know he has a bad rep because he was at IU, like went to IU, and hasn't been the smoothest of sailing right now at URI. But like, I think he's an incredibly smart coach. I think he's an unbelievable coach as a whole. And then this past year at Army, like the highest of high character kids. Like you're not dealing with a lot of the egos, which you kind of have to deal with nowadays with the culture of just what college basketball sometimes can be. But yeah, it had transitioned out. Like I said, for my sake, big picture, why I wanted to coach was the relationships I had with my assistants, especially Terry Johnson. Um, and I just don't know if you get that completely anymore because of what NIL and transfer portal's really done. Not saying it's the case for every situation, but a lot of schools, they're getting impacted because of that. And just knew for my sake, it was ready to transition out of it.
Yeah, and one more thing, and I'll let BFC hop in here then. So you mentioned Terry Johnson. So let's go back a little bit here. So because you had kind of a unique situation, I believe you were recruited by Brad Stevens, and then obviously he left to go to Boston, and
Yep.
then Brandon Miller came in. You had him for a year, and then he left, and then you had Holtman, I think, for the rest of your career, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. What was that like? I mean, that's a lot of changes. And I feel like you were mentioning today's environment, I feel like a kid bounces, after like the first change these days.
Yep.
Like, how did you manage that? That's a lot of different things happening. And you guys still had a great amount of success with Holtman, obviously. Talk to us about that. What made you stay and how did you adapt to those different coaches?
Yeah, it's funny you say that too, because when Coach Stevens left and that whole thing went down, that night I had a night summer class with astronomy, and Professor Brown, I'll never forget it. He basically, when I got in there, he was like, "If you need to call people or whatever, like, don't worry about this class right now." But yeah, obviously I have a close circle. Like, I'd be lying if I said Coach Stevens wasn't a huge reason why I came here. But at the same time, I came here because I fell in love with Hinkle. I fell in love with the campus. I fell in love with so much more than just one individual. Once again, Coach, I would have loved times a million the opportunity for Coach Stevens to be my coach. But as you said, I had two other great coaches lead the way for me. And we had a great support staff as well. I mean, Mike Louie, Pete, and T, like I said, the list goes on and on for the guys that we had around them. And the Butler culture, no matter what, we were going to figure out how to win. I had full faith. Like, as you know, our freshman year was a struggle. That was also a horizon to A10 to Big East shift. Not making an excuse right there, but quickly we adapted and we figured it out, and it worked out for those last so many years.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. BFC, what you got?
Yeah, I actually kind of wanted to go back into the recruitment because you had definitely an interesting, recruitment where you were recruited into a, mid-major conference and then ended up playing in Power Five. So what was that kind of process like when you learned that change was coming?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to even remember the timeline of when the realignment for the Big East kind of happened, but I think the reassurance I got from like my coaches or the coaches that were there at the time, just really made me feel like I was ready for it. And at the same time, like the day in and day out stuff that I did and like just the mentality I had going into workouts, going into just preparation each day, I knew I wasn't going to sell myself short on the idea of preparing myself to be good enough for that competition. And I was fortunate enough to have some great coaches, not only at Butler, but growing up, where they really taught me the ins and outs of basketball and really how to take advantage of different opportunities. Not always being the biggest, most athletic person, but really making sure you're using your body to the best it can be and just putting yourself in winning opportunities for your team.
Yeah, and then obviously, like we were talking about, it's a different landscape now where you just don't really see four-year guys at one university very often. I think, Butler has a chance, just kind of both how those schools set up to be one of the few that keeps having that. But your, story of obviously coming in during the transition, having that kind of tough freshman year outside of your play, obviously getting recognition from the Big East, but then to being a senior and being first team All Big East, which is I'm not sure how many there are, but it's one of few Butler players to achieve that. Kind of bring us through that process of just improving under the Butler staff and what kind of the Butler way brought to you throughout your development.
Yeah, so like you said, six of us went in my freshman year, and it was just Steve Bennett and myself that graduated from that class. Which that guy, I love him to death. But yeah,
quick shout out to Steve Bennett, by the way. He called me back, and I've never spoken to him, but I appreciate the guy. He's like an ortho doctor, so shout out to Steve Bennett. All right, okay, I'll let you go.
Hardest guy, most genuine person ever. Love him to death. But yeah, no, like you're saying, I think one of the biggest things Butler and the staff prepared me for going into each and every year was nothing's promised, nothing's guaranteed. So as you were saying, like, yes, I was Obviously happy that I earned first team All Big East for freshman year, but that didn't mean anything for the sophomore year. And I knew I had to do everything in my power to improve that offseason, do whatever I had to do to make sure I was ready for that upcoming year. Because just like any other school, like nowadays with NIL, but more common than before was like the incoming freshman class, whatever. Not NIL, I'm sorry, the transfer portal. But more and more people are coming in. They're trying to figure out who's going to be the best player. So it's the same idea when I was there. You're like, yeah, it's sometimes the underclassmen, but you have to outcompete people no matter what. And as much as you want to make sure everyone's getting better, I think the competitive side of it all makes, as a unit, everyone get better no matter what.
Yeah, and then obviously you were, at Butler for a couple great years, and you got the chance to play with, I think, probably the three best pure scorers, in the Big East era for Butler with
Mm-hmm.
Kellen, Kamar, and Keelan. Kind of go into what you've seen from them, and obviously they've had successful careers overseas as well. And what a player like that looks like in practice every day.
Yeah, like you said, I was fortunate where they made me look a lot better times too, where some of my assist stats might have been inflated a little bit, where they're making tough shots. But no, they are so special. I mean, Kamar's story starts right away when he hits the game winner against Northwestern. Like you're set up now as a Butler guy no matter what. And then like Keelan Martin catching fire over and over again, especially in the crossroads against IU my senior year. Like you can say it about all these. Kellen Dunham, yeah, he was the ultimate gym rat. Like it's crazy what that kid was doing. But I was fortunate to have so many winners on my team. Rose Jones, T. Lou, Keithan Savage, Avery Woodson comes in and he's an absolute gamer. Like I was spoiled with teammates that just more than anything than else, they wanted to win. And it wasn't about individual accolades. Like obviously those sometimes come because of what the team does as a whole. And all we really cared about was winning. I mean, that my senior year, especially, I think we were preseason eighth, I think it was. And to do what we did and like still not be completely satisfied because we were like, we ended slowly and wanted to do so much more, but it was still just such a special team.
So what would you say is maybe the toughest team and then the toughest individual player you ever had to go up against?
Toughest team and toughest individual. So I don't want to give him a shout out because I just hate him. But Providence for me because it was a hometown game. I mean, I love Coach Cooley's great. Obviously, I hope he has success. But I had a hair across my ass against them. So and I didn't ever. I might have had one good game against them in my 4 years, and it irked the hell out of me. And I think as a team, we didn't even have a great record against them. They just played tough. I mean, they still ran the flex. Like, oh, it was so frustrating to play against them. But like I said, Coach Cooley did an unbelievable job preparing them, just emotionally more than anything, because it was those guys were just tough as heck. Toughest individual to guard. I mean, there was a lot of scorers that, like, obviously Villanova had some great teams, great individuals. Trayvon Blewett, he was a great scorer, could score at all three levels. But that's even my sophomore year. There was Josh Smith that was 350 pounds, and I would be guarded against him, and then Cam Woods would be on someone thinner and go get the rebounds as I'm boxing them out. So it's tough to say, but there was a lot of talent, that's for sure.
No, that Providence going to I guess it was the dunk. Now it's the amp. Yeah. That's just like a house of horrors for a lot of teams. It's not just like you guys, but and then maybe what was maybe your favorite? Let's just start with Hinkle. What was your favorite Hinkle memory specifically that you experienced during your 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, we had so many big wins. Obviously, beating Villanova at home was huge. Anytime you're playing Xavier and hopefully coming away with a win, like obviously those are big ones. Yeah, those are easy answers. I mean, yeah. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but those it was amazing to have the fans in this, like, standing on the track and filling it to absolute capacity where you can feel the whole place shake basically just because of how much support you're getting, and it really was so much freaking fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I always say, obviously, they were better last year. I think they're trending the right direction, but they had a few bad years, obviously. And I still tell people when Hinkle's rocking, you're not going to find a better place to watch a basketball game. The environment there is nuts. I mean, there's a few games that always goes nuts. Villanova, Xavier. This year we had like Texas Tech and Cal. So there was a lot of really fun ones. And then maybe not just Hinkle. What was maybe outside of Hinkle? It could be the tournaments, whatever it was. What was maybe a couple of your favorite memories from your Butler days, even just outside of Hinkle?
Yeah. And just to follow up what you were just saying right there too, like the beautiful thing about Butler fans too is like a weekday 8 p.m. game, there's still 11,000 people in there. And like, as you're saying, I've been around a lot to different schools, and you don't see that at a lot of places. Like Hinkle, the fans, like, yeah, the fans are also going to probably come up to you after the game and tell you didn't do something well, if that's the case. But it is amazing. But to answer your question, I individually always had good games at Marquette, so that was fun. And we played my senior year. We played there for the round of 64 and 32 there, so that was the first time we got out of the first weekend. So that'll always have a special place for me. Butler's gonna hate me saying it, but Cintas is cool. I mean, it's a cool arena. I mean,
I'm editing that out just so you know. Okay.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, I was gonna say that might not end up well. But I mean, we're spoiled. We get MSG. We get a lot of pro arenas. But Hinkle's above and beyond. And I swear every time we played at Creighton, it was dollar beer night. So that was always 17,000 people just having a good time. So.
Yeah, I think your career high, I believe, was actually against Marquette, and I think it was your senior year. I think was that the third, or was that
I had
you had 30 in one of those games.
Year was at Marquette.
Yeah.
I had like 5 though there too. I had 30 then.
And then I remember go for it.
One more time my freshman year at Georgetown. I can't remember if it was 30 or it was the high 20s, where like that was a first like kind of breakout game was at Georgetown. But yeah, the two big games that I loved playing at Marquette.
And then one I actually remember a lot from you is it was a home game versus Xavier. I don't know if you dropped like a ton of points or not. For some reason, it just felt like you like dominated the game, and I don't really know why. It's a very vague memory.
Yeah, no, it's our senior year because I mean my senior year, 2-0 against Villanova, 2-0 against Xavier, so that was always fun to say. And yeah, it was just a steady game where I drew a lot of fouls.
Yeah,
got to the little drifty left shoulder hook push shot thingy, and made a couple shots. Whatever, it was just timely things. But once again, it was definitely not a me win by any means because, as you said, I wasn't stuffing the stat sheet. It was just a couple big time buckets.
So one more thing, I'll let BFC jump in. But when did you realize that kind of funky mid-range, I don't even know what you want to call it, but you were like the master of it. You would go in, you get a ton of and ones, you'd be fading away, little like off the backboard. I'm like, how the hell did he make that? Like, it makes no sense. Like, when did you realize like, hey, like this could be something that I can use to an advantage? Because you're a big guy, no doubt about it. But like you said earlier, you're going up against some dudes that were like enormous, right? So when did you kind of incorporate that into your game, and then how did you take advantage of it?
See, I don't know how it completely kept on going more and more sideways, but growing up, I was a back to the basket guy. I was bigger. As I basically after my freshman year, that's when I started going to a trainer, Chris Herron, and basically a mentor of mine. And started working more guard skills. But for whatever reason, that move just kept on adapting to drifting more and more. And you saw how it was like I'd spin back and it just kept on going sideways. And I did think it was just more just realizing you're not going to jump over someone. You're not going to be able to just get a normal layup off. And growing up, my dad used to make me do just different drills just for hand strength. And so you're comfortable like exposing the ball a little bit, and then as you said, get a couple of these ticky tack ones where you're able to power through it. And like one of the best players at doing that, Rose, he legitimately would expose the ball completely like this and just and like just get smack. But he was the strongest kid in the world, and he would just get another and one, and it was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. BFC, what you got, man?
Yeah, so I think something that you just said that caught my attention is obviously their relationship with with Chris Herron. So just kind of go into that because I know obviously some people might not know his story, but it's incredible. Yeah, so yeah, just kind of go into how that relationship formed.
Yeah, I mean, he's from my town. So after my freshman year, he was trying to get into training and knew that he could benefit from it, and then athletes could benefit from it as well. Um, so obviously, it was a trust factor in the beginning. And first workout, he was killing me. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was perfect. He was running me. He was doing different ball handling drills that I haven't been doing because, like I said, I was primarily a big fella. But different things that like were out of my comfort zone, so you're getting even more tired. Also, at one point, sat down, head down, like just exhausted, and he came over and put his head on my head, and my dad just saw that moment. He was like, "I trust him." Like it was something immediate. Like he's been there, he's gonna be there for me, all that type of stuff. And then, like I said, up until today, like still love him to death. He was incredibly helpful, developing me as an athlete, obviously, but more importantly, mentally. As I said, it's not always going to be perfect. And I will be the first to say I'm incredibly tough on myself. And he was the first. He always said, like, yeah, you can criticize yourself, but you also have to be your biggest cheerleader. So him really saying that because he's obviously a mentally strong guy and just went through it all, and hearing it from him really means something.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I think, obviously we got into the Big East stuff, but playing overseas, there's obviously some crazy environments. This won't shock you, but when we asked Paul Jorgensen this, what his favorite arena playing overseas was, he was like, "Oh, it was this little shoebox in Poland, and there was 1,000 people there. They were all cussing me out." He was like, "It felt like I was home in New York." So what was your favorite environment that you got to play in overseas?
Yeah, so I mean, Poland was nuts. Poland, yeah, they flares and fireworks and inside, and it's fun having a Polish last name too. It's actually a fairly common last name in Poland too, so it's like it's fun hearing them chant and go about it, and enjoying themselves. But my first year in Belgium, like I said, in Alst, um, it was a 2,000 seat arena that was packed every night. Then they have Carnival there where it's even crazy. Like you're doing layup lines, and there's people in costumes coming on the court and going in the layup lines with you. And you're just like, I guess this is normal. But it's both those countries. They love their football too, or soccer. And they just know how to chant. They just know how to have a fun time. And yeah, some of it gets a little directed, but a lot of it is just the whole arena just going nuts, which is really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And then maybe what was your, best memory over there? It doesn't have to be playing necessarily, but one story that stood out to your time over there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously having family to come and visit, that's always a memory you'll have. Um, but for me, I think my first year over there, there's a family. They're the Tofis. So he was a vet. He was with the team for 7, 8 years, and obviously you're in college. You're still stateside. You're only a 2 hour flight or for me, I'm only a 2 hour flight from my home. Like it was easy to get home if I ever had to. And all this, when you're over there, you're not getting home. And so first holiday comes around with Thanksgiving, and right away he's inviting us all over. Um, and it just means so much. He had a family of, at that time, 5 young boys, and you're still over there till midnight, just shooting shit, having fun, just laughing together. And now it's funny seeing it full circle where his oldest son just committed to Cal for football, and his second oldest son is one of the top recruits for football right now. So it's fun seeing them grow up, but it's like I'll forever be grateful for how him and his family and his wife were while we were over there.
So just a couple last things for me, and let's bring it up to date here. Can we expect to see you in the TBT anytime?
I would have happily done it this past year. I was
Dude,
still
we got to get you in there.
Yeah, I was doing scout team for West Point, so I'd go out and play a little bit. So I was in decent shape, but yeah, if they ever need it, Emerson has my number. We can figure something out. But no, it was fun seeing the dogs. Obviously, it's fun seeing Hinkle host it, and I mean, more and more people, more and more of the world, our country gets to see just how special of a place Hinkle really is.
Do you ever get back to Hinkle these days or?
So because of coaching just was tough.
Right.
This past year I was fortunate where we played IU. Went out a couple days early, and so I saw them play. It was one of the early games, so it was like I forgot exactly who it was. They kicked their butt, but it was first time as a fan actually being in Hinkle and watching them. So that was fun. I mean, once again, it was for my sake. It was cool to see a mostly full arena for a third game of the year against a bad opponent. So it's special. The fans are so.
Yeah, now that you are out of coaching, I would say 100% get back there. Man, that TBT was that was just the coolest thing that I've seen in a long time. Because uh, obviously with Grant Linedecker taking over as AD now and everything, I just think he's bringing like a really like fresh perspective, you know? And so it was so cool. I like walking, I was like, oh, there's Keelan. Oh, there's Tyler Weidman. Oh, there's, like you see all these people and you're like, the entire Butler family's here. Oh, there's Gordon Hayward. Like it was the coolest thing. Like you had like all generations all in like one building. So I know they're doing it again next year. So I'm gonna start promoting that you be in it. I just want you to know that I'm gonna fully advertise it. So every single day I'm just gonna post something like this tweet if you want Andrew Travis in the TBT. We're gonna get you in that thing because I want to do ball and Hinkle again, man.
Gotcha. I'll make sure I get back in
Yeah,
play.
I would say get back in the court. Start training a little bit. BFC, you got anything else, man?
Yeah, I would say one more is just kind of diving into the Rhode Island coaching experience because obviously, I mean, between Archie Miller and Dan Hurley, Rhode Island has had some phenomenal coaches here recently. So just kind of go into your time there and what you learned, obviously from Archie.
Yeah, I think once again, game planning, just prep, how he goes about it. I thought everything was great. He really did listen to his staff for advice. I would not say we had a great year that year when I was with him. And what I really appreciate and learned from him is behind closed doors as a staff. Yeah, you can say some things, you can whatever, bitch, complain, whatever you want to do. But as soon as he got in front of the players, positive attitude, was bringing high energy. Yeah, he's coaching them still. He's still making sure they're coachable. So yeah, he's still getting on them every once in a while, but he is trying to make sure the attitude and energy every day was positive and when they were trying to get better. Which I really, really thought was pretty special just because, like I said, it wasn't exactly how the year we were thinking it was going to go.
Awesome. Well, I mean, I don't have anything else. BFC, you got anything else? Otherwise, I think we've covered a lot of great things. So, hey, man, really appreciate you sitting down with us. This is fun. I always love talking to alum and hearing about the good old days and what they're up to now. But yeah, again, you got to get back to Hinkle, man. We got to get you in that TBT. I'm excited to see you ball again. Because as much as I loved it, I mean, and I love Shelvin, and I love Rodney Clark, and I love these guys, but I love also to maybe get a little younger. I don't know, but no, for real, I really do appreciate you sitting down
Yep.
with us. It's always a good time, man, and I'm always gonna say, go Dogs.
Yep. Go Dogs, man. Appreciate it though.